it is summertime here at Zero to Awesome, and you know what that means? Both heat stroke and boat stuff. And since it is about 110 degrees in my garage right now, today we're actually gonna do both of those. Actually, we're not even going on the water, we're doing boat stuff in the garage. So I guess this is like boat adjacent stuff. I have a 40-year-old sailboat, which you've probably seen on this channel before, that runs on a 30-year-old outboard motor. And you might be asking yourself, Alan, why does a sailboat need a motor? And the answer to that is I'm not good at sailing. I recently did a ton of work to this sailboat, replaced almost every part you can possibly replace on it. And when I was doing that, I was considering switching out and actually upgrading the motor from something that's 30 years old to something that's new. In fact, Mercury, a company that makes outboard motors, has a lot of really cool motors now that are more modern, they're more efficient, and they've got gas tanks built right into them. And I was telling one of my friends at the marina about this, and he said, hey, I have an extra one of those in my garage if you want it. If you're wondering what that hissing noise is, my dolly just sprung a leak, actually sprung a leak. So we're gonna wait for that to stop leaking air, and then we're gonna talk about this, my free outboard motor that needs like a little bit of work. But also, like, thanks John for the motor. First things first, we need to get our new-ish motor off the ground. We'll throw it on the vise and we'll take a look at it and we'll talk about what we're going to attempt to do with this motor today. I know different companies make all sorts of like fancy outboard motor stands, but around here, we don't play those games. We take a 2x4 with some holes in it, we take our vise on the workbench, we tighten it down, kinda level, loosen this guy up, tighten this up, that little tap, and presto, we have a free-ish, oh god, engine stand. Why did water come out of that? Oh god, it's leaking oil everywhere. Huh, that's mildly concerning, and it's all over my toes. Let's take a look at what we have to work with and what we're going to do. So best I can tell, this is a late 2000s-ish, like 2005 to 2010 Mercury 4-stroke, 4 horsepower outboard motor, which is exactly what I would need to buy for my boat. Right now I've got a 4 horsepower 2-stroke. The big difference between the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke is 2-stroke you have to mix oil and gas before you put the gas in the motor. This has its own oil reservoir. Also, I like that this has a gas tank built into it. Right now I've got a gas tank I have to plug into it externally. I was told it needs a new gas tank because this one is broken off. Someone was just a little too strong and just snapped this right off. It wasn't me, even though I am strong. So the plan today was to clean it up, to check the plugs, check everything inside, put some fuel in it, try and get it started. Maybe we have to clean out the carb, I don't know. I really know nothing about this specific motor. Thankfully, I do keep a collection of instructional manuals on the nightstand in our guest bedroom, and I have an outboard engines manual. So this might come in handy, but our original plan was to clean it up, check everything out, and try and get it running. If I can get it running and everything functions, then I was gonna go through and order the parts and actually replace the gas tank and replace other things that might need to be replaced, because those parts are a little expensive. Wanted to make sure it was working before I just bought parts, you know, shot the parts cannon at it. Overall, it looks pretty good. Like I said, this needs to be replaced, that's broken. You can tell someone let it sit in the water because it has some crud on it, but it doesn't look that bad. Even the prop's not all dinged up, nothing's really chewed up. I am concerned because when we put it up here, it started just gushing oil out of the center of the propeller. And these motors have a reservoir of oil in the bottom. It's gear oil, but everything that gushed out did not seem like gear oil. It seemed like engine oil. Maybe someone had put engine oil in the lower unit where gear oil goes, I don't know. I would imagine there's a seal down here which has gone bad. So yeah, let's clean some things up. We'll take the hatch off, we'll take a look, and we'll see if we can actually get it started. Whew, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's dive in. You know what, but before we dive in, we should get a pickle beer ready. I think this guy, if we fail today at starting this motor, we're gonna be drinking that pickle beer. So wish me luck. All right. I've not opened this up before, so who knows what we're about to find. Hey, it's actually surprisingly clean in there. We have the fuel tank, which is snapped off. Air intake, a little dirty, but overall the carb looks pretty clean. Throttle linkage functions. We've got one spark plug here, which I actually have some spark plugs from when I serviced my outboard motor. And most outboard motors made in like the last 100 years usually use the same spark plugs. So we have some on hand if we need to replace those. This boot right here on, maybe that's an ignition coil. That's a little chewed up. That might need to be replaced if we can get this running. I see where our fresh oil goes in. So yeah, I don't know why oil would be leaking out there. I think that's like the lower unit gear oil. I think someone put engine oil in that, which that's not good. Of course, we're in the southern United States, so we've got mud daubers and hornet nests everywhere. Most importantly, does she pull? Ooh. The low oil light is turning on. Yeah, so first we're gonna vacuum out all the crap in the mud daubers, and then we're gonna add some oil and hope it doesn't start pouring out down here. So I've got this thing a little taken apart. All I did was take the gas tank off, and I've got it pretty cleaned up, and I think we've already learned quite a bit about this motor. One thing I like is that the cylinder, the block, it's actually metal. A lot of newer stuff, they're actually making these out of plastic and just other sort of composites. I even have a new generator where the cylinder is plastic, so if I can get this working, that's gonna be really good. This looks like a little freeze plug, which I wouldn't think the cooling water would be that high in the motor to need a freeze plug, but it's good to know that that's there. Just by looking, I can see my fuel tank was sitting up here, and I've got my fuel lines that there's a cutoff switch or maybe a bypass switch right back here that lets me suck fuel from either my built-in fuel tank, which is currently not built in, or from an external fuel tank that you can hook in right there. Your fuel is gonna flow through the fuel filter, being sucked up by this, the fuel pump. It looks like it's a little mechanical fuel pump. That then goes into our carburetor, which has a nice clean air intake. Everything looks clean, no parts seem to be missing. There is a hose or a little valve right here. Nothing's on it. It doesn't look like anything was on it, so we'll ignore that for now. I'm gonna pop the spark plugs out just to make sure the spark plugs look clean. But most importantly, right now, I want to check the oil. This is where the engine oil goes. I don't see any reason or any way the engine oil would be down here in the lower unit. So I'm thinking that was all the gear oil that spilled out of there. So we're going to check the engine oil, top it up if we need to, or we might just replace it if it looks gross. And then we're going to take a look down here and check the gear oil and see if there's any in there. Hopefully that's what leaked out, because we can test this with no gear oil, that's fine. We can't test it with no engine oil. That would blow it up if we did get it started. Yeah, we've got plenty of engine oil and it looks good. If I use this motor, I'll definitely switch out that engine oil, but I think for the purpose of firing it up, it's gonna be just fine. Now I wanna check if I have gear oil. I think all this oil that leaked out down here was the lower unit or the gear oil. What concerns me is it looked like motor oil. And this is marine gear lube, gear oil. And you can see it doesn't look like motor oil. It's usually a different color. It's got additives to prevent water from getting in the oil since it's typically underwater. Yeah, I'm worried it was just motor oil in there. Hopefully it wasn't just motor oil. I don't know. We're going to open this up and see if anything comes out. So usually you have, it looks like I've got a drain down here and then a fill port up there. And somebody has left this, you can see from here down, it's been sitting in the water. You don't want to leave these things sit in the water because they look like this if they do. And also these things are raw water cooled, so they suck in water from the lake to cool the motor. and you can really easily clog up your water intake by leaving it in the water, and then your motor overheats and is dead. So hopefully that didn't happen. Hopefully we can get these screws out. We're gonna just crack the top if we can to get, oh yeah. I can hear it sizzling like there was something in there. Gonna get something to catch this oil. Ew, this is gross. Oh God. Come on. Come on. And this, boys and girls, is why you do not leave your engine sitting in water. I was worried that it might be cross-threaded and stuck in there, but it looks like it went in straight. There we go. All right, let's see if any gear oil comes out of here. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Let's do some scientific analysis, shall we? Good, clean, fresh gear oil is gonna look like that. It's gonna be bluish or maybe like a light, very light, kind of dark gray, and it's gonna be pretty viscous. This, in this water bottle, don't drink this, is what came out of the lower unit, or the little gearbox that lives right down here in the outboard motor. And it is watery, it is runny, it smells burnt, it's very viscous. It's definitely used up and it definitely got some water in it. You can see we shake it, it's all foamy, it's got water in there. So I think what happened, especially considering that we dumped a bunch of oil out of the lower unit, is there's probably a seal in here or a seal right there, and that seal, methinks, has gone bad. So I don't have that seal. I'll have to find the part number and order it if we can get the motor running. We can fire it up. We're just gonna leave it in neutral so those gears are not engaged so we don't burn up a gearbox with no oil in it. So that brings us to firing it up. Thankfully, there was no fuel left in the fuel tank, which is good because old fuel sitting in the fuel system is bad, it degrades things. This fuel filter, we might have to take that out. I have an inline fuel filter from my Volkswagen we can throw in if we need a fresh fuel filter. I do have some spark plugs that I think will fit this. We've got some carb cleaner if we need to, jump start it with some carb cleaner. And I think, yeah, we'll see if it fires up. Gas tank is back on. I think we are doing the proper righty-tighty, lefty-loosey to tighten up the last screw. The fuel filter seemed like it was clean. The spark plugs, I only found one of them, and I know there's more than one. So the one I did find, there has to be more than one spark plug, right? Even my old 2-cycle one has 2 spark plugs. Maybe I should read that book. Anyways, we're gonna put some fuel in our broken gas tank, which isn't the safest thing. So we'll seal that up with some duct tape, and then we'll turn the choke on. We'll give the Yankee Doodle a yank, and with any luck, the motor starts. It is not in the water right now, and I do not have it hooked up to any sort of water cooling muffs. So if it starts, we're gonna run it for like a hot second and then turn it off. Because even if it was in water, I have no idea if the impeller in this thing is gonna work. So gas, fire extinguisher, and let's do some yanking. Getting mildly splashed with gasoline, so we're gonna add that duct tape we were talking about. We're gonna try some of our secret weapon here. Ooh. I don't think it's getting fuel. So we're gonna take off this fuel line and see if any fuel is getting to the little fuel pump. Hello? It wants to start up on carb cleaner, and there's no fuel right here. If our fuel pump was priming, I would imagine we would have some fuel right here when I took this off. So this tells me we're probably not getting gas through the fuel pump into the carburetor. So I'm thinking fuel filter might be all clogged up, or just the fuel line in general might be gummed up. Maybe it did sit with some bad water or bad fuel in there for a while. Hopefully not water. Gonna take this gas can back off and see, and we're gonna see what the holdup is. Why are we not getting gas? Ugh. I believe this is the recommended way to clean a fuel filter. You just get your big air compressor. Arrow says flow that way. Oh, don't mind me, just taking a spark plug out again. And it's, I think, going a little bit. 0.035. We are properly gapped. Let's put it back in. It is starting on starting fluid, so we know we have a fuel problem. We're getting spark, we're getting air, just we're not getting fuel into the carburetor. This is the line that goes from the fuel tank into the fuel pump, and there's fuel there. So we're gonna take off these zip ties, and I don't know if these zip ties were factory original or if maybe someone has been doing some work in here before. But we could have either A, gummed up fuel pump, a B, gummed up one of these lines, or maybe even there was some fuel sitting in the carburetor and we've got a gummed up carburetor. Let's take more things apart before we drink our penalty pickle beer. Yeah, no fuel has been going from our fuel pump to our carburetor. So let's take our fuel pump off. I'm not certain what type of fuel pump this is. I imagine it's kind of like an old school mechanical fuel pump that you'd find on a Chevy big block 350 something, where there's probably just a little push rod that pushes on a diaphragm, and that's what creates the suction that gets the fuel going through the motor. So that could be all crudded up. Ethanol fuel these days, maybe that eroded the little rubber diaphragm in here. But hey, we're about to find out, because while I was talking to you, I was also getting the last screw out. We were definitely 100% right about how this works. There's this little rod right here, which as the motor spins around, there's a little cam in there, and that cam pushes on this little rod and creates a little bit of suction. I'm not certain how to test this to see if we're getting suction. Maybe I'll put my finger on it and squeeze it and see if I suck my finger in. That little rubber diaphragm, this guy right here, it's intact. I thought it might be torn or it might be corroded away by today's ethanol fueled fuel, which does eat things up like little rubber pieces in your fuel system, but it seems fine. So I don't know, we're gonna just spray it with some parts cleaner, reseal it, and give it a couple more tugs. All right, we've got the fuel pump back on, and there is one more kind of little test I wanna do. We're gonna leave off the line coming out of the fuel pump, and we're gonna yank this thing a few times, and I wanna see if we get any fuel coming out of the fuel pump, because I'm starting to think, and I have been wrong before, once or twice, I'm starting to think fuel pump is our problem. Somewhere between the fuel tank, fuel filter, fuel pump, either this line right here or the fuel pump I think is all gummed up. Let's find out. Yeah, I think our fuel pump is not working. Well, I'm out of parts because I didn't actually order any parts. I was a little confident I could get this working. So what did we learn today? We learned that I now get to drink my pickle beer, because around here, when you fail at something, you have to punish yourself with a disgusting, disgusting pickle beer. Mmm, foamy, salty, and not refreshing. So, it wants to start on carb cleaner. So I'm confident it's getting air, it's getting spark. There's nothing wrong with the engine compression, anything like that, because I'm gonna do this one-handed. It's gonna be awesome. No. Look at that. We're not getting fuel out of the fuel pump. I think the fuel pump's bad, or maybe one of these lines, there could have been some fuel sitting in it. It's all corroded, it's got gunk in it, who knows? So that's gonna be either replacing the fuel pump or replacing the fuel lines. I think once we do that, we're gonna have a running motor, which means all this crud has to get cleaned up. I've never really dealt or seen that before. So maybe a wire brush, maybe it has to be repainted once it's cleaned up. I have no idea, we'll figure that out. Also, our gear oil was definitely leaking out of here, so there's a seal in here. I'm gonna have to track down, replace that seal, replace the gas can, and then I think we're gonna move up like 15, maybe 20 years from a 30-year-old outboard to maybe like a 10-year-old outboard. And it's gonna be nice, but it's not gonna happen tonight. So, until next time, enjoy your pickle beers, because I'll be enjoying this one. Not the worst pickle beer I've had, but definitely not the best anything. Replace this motor. So maybe a fuel pump. Not motor, why did I say motor? Gas can. Replace this gas can. Motor's fine.